Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. This is the button down abaya we'll be making. It has a 2-in-1 overlap gathered sleeve. If you're interested in sewing this dress, please watch the video to the end. You'll be needing 4 yards or more of fabric for this time. Fold your fabric in 4 like this, leaving about 2 to 3 inches outwards for your button space at the front. So the place you see me draw the line, first of all, I measured 2 inches from the top, the middle, and then the bottom and connected with a straight line. That means that place is automatically the front of our dress, and the part on complete fold is the back. So the next thing we will do is to draw our starting line, which should be about 0.5 inches from the beginning of the fabric. So just measure your 0.5 inches and connect it like you see me do. All your horizontal measurements for the dress must start from the folded edge of the fabric, that is the back. So divide your shoulder measurement by 2 and add ½ inch for seam allowance. My shoulder measurement is 14, divided by 2 is 7, plus ½ inch is 7.5. Come down by 1 inch for your shoulder slope. For the wideness of the neck, we'll be using 3 inches. And for the depth of the back neck, we'll be using 1 inch. So that is the 1 inch I'm marking. For the depth of the front neck, we'll be using that same 3 inches that we use for the wideness. So mark it along the part that you left your allowance. Connect from the neck wideness to the neck depth of the back like so. That is a 3 to 1 inch. I decided to connect again from the 3-inch wideness to the 3-inch depth of the front, just for illustration purpose. The next thing to do is to connect your shoulder slope to the neckline. Then come down by 7.5 inches or 8 inches depending on the body size of your client. Then make sure that what you have on your shoulder line is the same as what you have at that 8 or 7 inches point, so that you can square it up with your ruler like so. Now when you are done, that is where we'll be placing our bust measurement. So divide your bust measurements by 4, add 1 inch for ease and an extra 1 inch for seam allowance. I'm working with a bust circumference of 40. I'm dividing it by 4, that is 10. I added 1 inch for ease and then 1 inch for sewing allowance. And I'm using the ruler to just connect those points. Next, draw your armhole curve and let it blend into the space provided. Next, we go to the waist measurement. So from that starting line, mark your half length, and it's at that half length you will impute your waist measurement divided by 4 plus 1 inch for ease and another 1 inch for seam allowance. So I've marked my waist measurement. I'm adding 1 inch for ease and an extra 1 inch for seam allowance. Then use your ruler to connect it to the chest line. So what we are going to do next is to take our full length. The full length of the dress I'm working with is 54 inches. So as usual, mark the full length and then add extra 1 inch for folding the hem of the dress. So I'm just marking, so mark at another point to be able to get a straight line at the hem. So the next thing we'll do is to determine the wideness of the hem. I want the wideness of my hem to be 80 inches, and 80 inches divided by 4 is 20. So I'll mark my 20 inches, but there will be no need for ease. I'll just add my seam allowance, which is 1 inch. So at the end of the day, I'll have 21 inches at the hem. So just use a ruler. If you have a long enough ruler, use it, or you use your tape like I'm doing to connect from that waistline to the hem of your dress. You know, this is an A-line dress. It does not require So at the hem, come up by 1.5 inch. At that point, you see me marking, and then blend it back into the center of the hem like you see me doing. This will give your hem a very nice shape. We move on to the pocket. So for the pockets, you can come down from the waistline by about 1/2 inch or even 1 inch if you so decide, and then draw the outline of your pocket. Just make sure that your pocket is spacious enough for your hand to fit inside comfortably. Now we can start cutting our dress. I initially started cutting from the hem, but I changed my mind because I want to show you something at the neckline. So you will be cutting the neckline of both the back and the front together. Cut the back neckline first like so, and then you can redraw, that is, that's 3-inch wideness and the 3-inch depth that we took initially for the front. Just reconnect it and then cut it. You can now put the dress together and cut. Now the 0.5 inches I used to leave at that point is my seam allowance at the shoulder point. So just cut your dress. For the sleeve, just get a fabric that is wide enough for you to cut both sleeves at the same time, and then the length should be the full length of the sleeve that you want. I folded mine in 2 first, then folded it in 2 again. That means I can cut the both sleeves at the same time. As usual, we'll first draw our starting line. Next, come down by 4.5 inches for your cap line or cap height, and also draw that line. That will serve as the guideline for drawing your armhole curve and also where you'll be placing your bicep measurement. So divide your arm circumference at that bicep by 2 and add 1 inch for ease and an extra 1 inch for seam allowance. As you can see, take the full length of your sleeve and also draw that line. That is where we'll be placing our wrist measurement. For that part, you work with your wrist circumference. Mine is 8 inches. Now multiply it by 2 because it will be gathered. So that will be 16 inches. So that's 16 inches. Just divide it by 2, which is the 8 inches you will see me mark. Now since the sleeve is gathered at that point, no need for ease. Just add your 1/2 inch to 1 inch seam allowance and connect it to that cap line that you drew. Next, we draw our armhole curve. So for the armhole curve, I'm just going to draw a curve that's the circumference of that curve will fit into the armhole that I have for the dress. So that is just what I'm marking, to just make sure that it will fit into the armhole of the dress that I'm going to make. Cut out your sleeve. After cutting it out, please notch the midpoint, that is the tip of your sleeve. It is this basic sleeve that we are going to use to cut the sleeves that will overlap, that is the overlapping sleeve. Don't worry about this part, it's going to be gathered. For the overlapping sleeves, get a fabric that is the same width and length as the basic sleeve that you cut just now. Place the basic sleeve on it like so. But first of all, cut open the center of the sleeve. After cutting it, align the basic sleeve on the overlapping sleeve like this, and then cut it, just cut the outline of your sleeve exactly. So to demonstrate how the sleeve will look, just put your basic sleeve like this. That is the foundation. Then each of this part of the sleeve will come on top of the basic sleeve and then overlap, as you can see. But we'll be using white bias to make the decoration, gathering the base, and then it will just basically look like this. Just put your sleeve pieces together and set them aside for now. So pick the main body of the dress, and we'll start by interfacing the space you left for the buttons at the front. So that 2 to 3 inches space, interface it. Then use your pressing iron to make a little crease and then fold it back to that 2-inch point. So at the end of the day, it comes down to about 1 inch after folding. Then take it to the sewing machine and stitch it all the way down from that neckline to the hem. When you are done stitching for both sides of the front, trim any excess and then iron it so that your work can be neat as you go. After stitching and ironing it, this is what it would look like. So you see that your front part is already taking shape. Now it is time to attach the back and the front at the shoulders. So carry your back piece and right sides facing each other, match the shoulder seams together and then take it to the sewing machine and stitch it. After stitching, once again, iron your shoulder seams to just keep everything flat and neat. Move on to pinning the sides together, right sides facing each other like you see. So start pinning from the armhole area down to the pocket area. Just pin all the way around for the first sides and then the other side of the dress as well. After pinning, join your dress by that 1-inch seam allowance that you have. But when you come to the pocket area, join by 1/2 inch. Then when you come back to the base of the pocket like this, continue with your 1 inch. So after you are done joining the side seams together, we'll come to the hem of our dress. You can see that it is still raw. So fold it 1/2 and 1/2. Using that 1 inch that you left, just fold the hem of your dress like so. When you are done, give it a good press to keep it nice. Then we move on to decorating our dress with our trimming. So for the trimming, I will be using my 1.5 inch velvet bias. So I bought a roll of it and I'll be starting from the space we left for the button. So fold your velvet bias like so and just use it to cover part of that flap. Then make a stitch to reinforce and then just sew all the way to the hem of the dress. When you reach the hem of the dress, cut your bias some inches away from the hem so that you can fold it in like so. So by folding it, you keep the hem of the dress neat since you have already folded it before. So fold it in a way that no part of the bias will be peeking out. Then sew it. When you are done, please give it a good press to make it straight and smooth. Then we go to the other side of the front. For that part, we'll be starting from the base. So you turn your dress upside down and let's start from the hem. As usual, since the hem is already folded, start by folding your bias strip and then using it to cover the flap just the way you did for the first one, making sure that no part of the bias is peeking out. So just keep everything neat down there. Make your stitch to reinforce it and then sew all the way back to the neckline. Let's move on to the neckline. You know that the neckline is round, so please be quite careful around that area. So once again, fold in your bias strip, let it cover that part of the neck. Start with your stitch to reinforce as usual, and then just gently pivot around the circle of your neckline. Be careful not to pull so that it doesn't sag. So at the end, just do the same thing you were doing for the hem. Cut a few inches away from the flap, fold it in, and then just stitch it to keep that point clean. So make sure that you are keeping everything neat as you're sewing. If you have any stray threads, just cut them out. And also, please do not forget to be overlocking the insides of your dress. Guys, our dress is coming out pretty fine already. Please give this tutorial a thumbs up and subscribe if you're enjoying it. Now let's work on the sleeve of the dress. For the sleeve, like I said, we have the basic one and then the two that will be overlap on it. So this is just a demonstration of how it's going to be. We'll still sew all the way around, and then at the wrist area we will be making our gathers. Before that though, we'll still be decorating the sleeves just the same way we did for the front pieces. So carry your velvet bias like so and still cover it and stitch it. Do the same for all four pieces of the overlapping sleeve. After stitching it, please iron. As at the time of this recording, there was no light, so I could not iron mine. The next thing to do is to pin. So pin your sleeves at the cardinal points as you can see me doing. And then at the wrist area, make sure that the white part of the sleeve where the bias is placed overlap each other. That is very important. Let them overlap each other. Then continue pinning. Also make sure that they overlap at the tip, that is the middle of the sleeve. Then take it to your sewing machine and sew all the way around. And do that for the other sleeve too. After we are done stitching, this is what it will look like. And then turning it to the other side, you see what the back looks like. Our sleeve is already coming out, right? So the next thing to do is to run a simple gather sleeve about half inch away from the wrist area. So just run your gather stitch for both of the sleeves at the wrist area. I've gone ahead to run the stitch. The next thing we'll do is to gather the sleeve by pulling only one of the two threads that makes a stitch. I hope you understand what I'm saying. So if you want to pull the upper one, do so, or pull the lower one, but don't pull both of your threads at the same time. So make your gathers. Be careful not to tug too tight so that your threads don't cut. Arrange your gathers as you pull to make everything to be nice and even. Then you must cross check that the gather you have at the wrist area is enough for the circumference of the sleeve that you are working with. So gather both of the sleeves, and then remember that if the circumference of your sleeve is 8, whatever you have at that point must be 8 plus an extra allowance to stitch the sleeve together. So that is what I'm trying to arrange. Mine was not up to, so I've gone ahead to start releasing some of the gathers to just make sure that it is up to what I need. Then when we are done, we'll start working on the cuff of the sleeve. So I'll gather the both of them. We'll work on the cuff of the sleeve now. For that part, I have two pieces of fabric that when they are on fold, as you see, the wideness is 3.5 inches. You can go with 2.5, 3 inches, but whatever you have, add half inch for attaching it to the main sleeve. And then the length of the cuff is what we are going to be working on. So the length of the cuff should be exactly your sleeve circumference plus about 1 inch or half inch for joining the sleeve together. In all this, please make sure that your sleeve is nice and comfortable and can pass through your hand comfortably. So the next thing we are going to do is to use your pressing iron to fold in and iron half inch the way you see me doing it. Use the pressing iron to make that place a sharp crease, not for the both sides but only one side. That 0.5 inch is what we will be using to attach the cuff to the main sleeve. So once again, arrange your gathers. Now you flip your sleeve to the other side, that is the wrong side, and also take the part that is not creased, the part of the cuff that is not creased, take it and align it with the gather of the sleeve, as you can see, making sure that everything, both of them align and they are even. Then take it to your sewing machine and stitch. Do the same for the second sleeve. Now after joining the cuff to the sleeve like so, you can go ahead and trim a little bit. I trim to avoid bulkiness at that area. But if you know your seam allowance is not, or your joining allowance is not enough to trim, don't trim. Next, use the parts that you creased with the pressing iron to cover all the stitches you've made down there so far. So make sure that it aligns. This is the importance of that crease. Use your pin to hold them in place. So the crease is what hides the stitch that we've made, so that when you turn it to the wrong side, you don't see any raw edges, and on the right side you don't also see any raw edges. Take it to the sewing machine and sew it. So when you are done sewing, you see that both the back and the front are neat and there is no raw edges showing. Do the same for your other sleeve. You can see that our sleeve has come out nicely. Next, just fold your sleeve in two. If you like, you can pin. Then at the wrist area, make sure that you have your wrist circumference and then your allowance for joining. After marking that, just join your sleeve with half an inch. After joining the sleeve, please endeavor to open it and iron it so that everything will look nice. After joining it, this is what it looks like, including the cuff. So our sleeve has come out really nice. The same applies for the other one. Now the next thing to do is to take the mother dress and we'll be attaching the sleeve to the main dress. So pick up your sleeve, pick up one of the sleeves, and then making sure that the tip, that is the middle of the sleeve, aligns with your shoulder seam, with your shoulder joining. As you can see, make sure that they align. When they do, pin them in place. After pinning it, also make sure that the armhole area of both the sleeve and the mother dress aligns perfectly. Then take it to the sewing machine and sew all the way around. Do it for the other sleeve as well. Now it is time to fix the buttons. So we are almost done with our dress. This is the sleeve that is already attached to the main dress. For the button attachment, we will start fixing the button from half inch below the neckline. As you can see, I fixed the first button already. Then space each button by 3.5 inches. That is going to be the inter button space. So I'll be stitching them for you to see. There's something I need to explain. The first 4 buttons you'll be attaching to the dress are the only buttons that require buttonholes on the other side. I hope you understand what I'm saying. So place the second flap on it like this. This is where the buttonholes will be. So let your buttonholes and the buttons tally in distance. For the remaining buttons, we will still be maintaining our space of 3.5 inches. But this time around, we will be sewing it on the other flap, that is the right flap. So we'll mark them 3.5 inches until you come down to about 10 to 13 inches before the hem, where there will be no buttons. So like I said, we'll be stitching buttons on the right flap, no longer on the left one. And we'll be using that button or each of the buttons to stitch both flaps together. So make sure that both flaps are overlapped like you can see me doing, and then use your button to join the both of them together. That means you are using the button to join the front pieces together like this. So you can stitch before fixing your buttons. Just make sure that everything is even. So like I said, I used the right flap to overlap the left one, then placed my button on it and stitched them together. So this is the final look of our abaya dress. I hope you like it. Thank you so much for watching. Please give the video a like and subscribe for more content like this. Thank you.